Dikenga Audio presents a reinterpretation of Henrik Ibsen's Hedda Gabler by Steve Balderson and Joseph Suglia, featuring performances by Jennifer Grace, L.B. Deyo, Daniel Van Thomas, Kendall Lynch, Steve Balderson, Nancy Critchfield-Jones and Becky Jo Neal. Narrated by Damien Gerard. On a richly decorated dark-coloured wall hangs the portrait of a striking elderly man in a general's uniform. Several flower arrangements lit in the morning light through large French doors. Aunt Julia, in a baby blue suit, enters from the hall, followed by Berta, the maid, who carries a vase of daisies. Aunt Julia is a pleasant-looking lady of about 65.
My God, they're sleeping like the dead.
That's what I said, ma'am. It was late when they got in, and Lord, she had a lot to unpack.
Well, let them sleep. It is good to be asleep.
She goes to the French doors and throws them open. We can see the veranda beyond.
There, just a little fresh air. A little fresh air never hurt anybody. You belong to a new mistress now. It will be good to see you in a new home, though I must confess I'm sad to part with you.
It's tough for me too, ma'am, after all the years with you.
We must make the best of it. George can't do without you. You see, he absolutely can't. Ever since he was a little boy, he couldn't do without you.
But there's one other thing, ma'am. I'm afraid I won't please the new mistress. She's so peculiar.
That's only natural. After all, she's General Gabler's daughter. So spoiled she was growing up. I can see her now, riding down the road with the general in the Fat Tuesday parade, wearing a long golden coat with golden peacock feathers in her hair trailing in a golden line behind her.
Yes, indeed, but good Lord, I never imagined that she and little Georgie would end up together.
You never imagined. How amusing. Oh, that reminds me, from now on, one mustn't say little Georgie. One must say Dr. Tesman. He finished his Ph.D. in English last month.
Aunt Julia!
Good morning, George.
My dear Aunt Julia, come all this way so early?
He is a young-looking man, rather stout, with a round, open, cheerful face. He wears glasses, pyjamas, and a robe.
Why, of course I had to come and see how you were doing. How could I keep away?
Shall I go in and see if there's anything I can do for Miss,
No, thank you, Bertie. She said she'd let us know if she wanted anything. Here, Bertie, do take this with you.
I'll put it in the attic.
All of the notes for my next book.
Clearly, you didn't waste any time on your honeymoon, George.
No rest for a professor of English. Do take off your coat, Aunt Julia. Here, let me help you. What a nice jacket. Can you afford this?
I bought it to look nice for Hedda.
For Hedda?
Yes, so that she wouldn't be ashamed of me if we happened to go out together.
Oh, Aunt Julia, you always think of everything.
He drapes the coat on a chair beside the table.
What a delight it is to have you back, George. My George, my brother's favorite boy.
I like you too, Aunt Julia. You've been like a father to me.
A father?
I mean, a father and a mother all wrapped up in one skin. More father than aunt, you know. You know what I mean.
I know you will always keep a place in your heart for your dear Aunt Julia. I must admit, George, I never thought you were the marrying kind, and here you are, married to Hedda Gabler. About 15 years ago, I remember well, she had all of the boys chasing after her. She drove all of the boys crazy.
Yes, I'm sure I have several good friends who would like to take my place.
And what a honeymoon you've had. It must have been wonderful.
Well, for me, it's been a sort of a research trip as well.
I'm sure. All of those books.
I'm an English professor now. Just think, the university is practically in our backyard. You can visit us all the time. You are always invited. Our house is your house, Aunt Julia.
But now, listen, George, about your honeymoon. It must have cost a great deal of money. I can't understand how you did it. It had to be incredibly expensive.
But Hedda needed this trip, Aunt Julia. She really did. Nothing else would have done. She would always talk about getting away from it all. She didn't use those words. She'd always talk about escaping, about a way out.
Well, what does Hedda think of our new house?
It is fantastic. There's only so much room, but there's enough space for us three.
Oh, my dear George, I'm sure you'll fill the space up in no time.
You mean as my library increases?
Yes, my dear boy. It was your library I was thinking of.
I'm very pleased for Hedda. This house is what she needs. A nice, cozy house.
Lucky this very house came onto the market just after your wedding.
It's a buyer's market, don't you know? If you're going to buy a house, now's the time to do it.
But the expenses. Isn't it expensive, all of this?
My dear Aunt Julia, I am an English professor. I can afford everything we need. And don't forget, my dear, the housing market crashed. They're literally giving houses away. And Judge Brack is my realtor.
Even in this terrible recession, everything is going wonderfully well.
Yes, it is really wonderful how everything has turned out for the best.
And your book, what is it about again?
My research looks at Jane Austen and her novels from a cultural, cognitive point of view. Cognitive science and literature. It's the hottest new field on the market. Very edgy, very hip.
How exciting.
Yes, neurological science can tell us all we need to know about literature and about what it means to be human.
How lovely. You have a lovely new book. You have a lovely new house, and you have a lovely new wife.
Oh, yes, yes, Aunt Julia. And Hedda is the best of the three.
Hedda Gabler emerges. Her hair is wild and full. Her complexion is pale and opaque. Her steel-grey eyes express a cold, unruffled repose. She wears an oriental red satin robe with ornate gold embroidery.
Good morning, Hedda. Good morning, and welcome home.
You're here early.
Did you sleep well?
No.
Oh, Hedda, you were sleeping like a log when I got up.
Fortunately. Oh, there, the maid has gone and opened the veranda door and let in a whole flood of sunlight.
Well, then we will shut it.
No, not that. George, please draw the curtains. I want to see darkness. Nothing but darkness.
All right now, all right. There now, Hedda. Now you have both shade and fresh air.
Yes, fresh air. Why is there never any fresh air in this place? Won't you sit down, Aunt Julia?
No, thank you. Now that I have seen that everything is all right, I must get home to bake my famous turkey meatloaf.
Doesn't Bertie do the cooking for you, Aunt Julia?
Berta will be staying with you from now on, dear. I almost forgot. I have something for you.
What is it, Aunt Julia?
Look here, my dear boy.
Oh! Mr. Quackers!
Hedda rubs her forehead. Maybe a slight headache.
I remember how much you loved your wild duck.
Yes, I missed him terribly.
In the reflection of the wall mirror, Hedda notices something on the sofa and spins around.
We shall never get on with this servant, George.
Not get on with Bertie? Why?
Look, she left her old coat lying on the chair.
Hedda!
He drops the duck to the floor.
What if anyone should come in and see it?
Hedda, that's Aunt Julia's coat.
Is it?
Yes, it is. And what's more, it isn't so old.
I really didn't pay much attention to it.
Let me tell you. It's the first time I have worn it. The very first time. It is most certainly not old.
And a very nice coat it is, too. What a beauty.
Oh, it's not all that, George.
But, Auntie, take a good look at Hedda before you go. Look at how beautiful she is. Look at her.
Oh, my dear George, there's nothing new in that. Hedda has been lovely for a long, long time.
Yes, but have you noticed? She has gained a little weight since the honeymoon.
Oh, be quiet, George.
She has gained weight.
Of course you don't notice it now that she has that dress on, but I have seen her without the dress, and I can tell you for sure that...
George, please, shut up.
Hedda, I'm not criticizing you. What good are bones without some meat? Nobody likes meatless bones.
Hedda is beautiful, despite all of her years.
Aunt Julia goes up to her, takes her head between both hands and squeezes her head.
God bless my nephew's new bride.
Oh, let go of me.
Bye-bye.
Hedda walks about the room, raising her arms and clenching her hands in desperation. Then she flings back the curtains from the glass door and stands there, looking out. George returns and picks up his duck from the floor.
You know, you could try to be a little nicer to Aunt Julia.
I will call her Aunt, but that's all I can do.
What are you looking at, Hedda?
I'm looking at the leaves. They are so yellow, so withered.
Well, we are well into September now.
Already in September?
What's the matter with you, Hedda?
Excuse me, ma'am. Miss Thea Elvsted is here to see you. She came a little while ago. Brought those flowers?
Mrs. Elvsted?
The girl with the irritating hair. Your ex-girlfriend.
Oh, that didn't last long. And that was long before I met you, Hedda. What's she doing in town?
It's strange that she should come by. I haven't seen her since we left high school.
Thea Elvsted is a woman of fragile figure, with pretty, soft features. Her eyes are bright, large, and somewhat prominent, with a startled, inquiring expression. She's a couple of years younger than Hedda. She wears a green dress, tasteful, but not quite in the latest fashion.
Thea, it's so nice to see you again.
Yes, it's been a very long time since we last met.
And we too!
Thank you for your lovely flowers. What's wrong? You seem distraught. I hope you're not in any trouble.
Yes, I am, and I don't know who else I can turn to.
Come, sit down. Has anything happened at home?
Yes, and no. Eilert Lovborg is back.
Lovborg.
What? Eilert Lovborg has come back? How about that, Hedda?
I heard what she said.
I am just so worried he'll get into trouble.
But why should you be so worried about him?
He was the children's tutor.
Your children's?
My husband's. I have none.
Was he dependable enough for the job?
Oh my, yes. For the last 2 years his conduct has been irreproachable.
Really? How about that, Hedda?
I heard what she said.
I can assure you, most assuredly, in every respect. After his book was published,
He published a book?
Oh, yes, a big book dealing with the end of American sovereignty. It came out a few weeks ago. It's been selling great. It's on the top 20 of the bestseller list.
Have you seen him here in town?
No, but my husband searched and found his address, and then he sent me out here to find him, to find Eilert.
You know, it seems a little odd that your husband should send you to town on an errand to find his friend.
Oh, no. My husband is so busy, and I had some shopping to do.
That's different.
Eilert is sure to come see you. You were such good friends.
We used to be, at any rate.
You will keep an eye on him, won't you?
Why not? I assure you I'll do all that I possibly can.
Oh, how very, very kind of you. Thank you. Because my husband is very fond of him.
Oh, I'm sure. You ought to write to him, George. He may not come on his own.
I'll write him this very minute. Do you have his address there?
Oh, please don't say I suggested it.
Not a word.
Be sure to write him a nice, friendly message, George.
Yes, my dear.
Thank God he's gone.
What do you mean?
Couldn't you tell that I wanted him gone? So that I could speak with you alone.
Oh, well, there's nothing more to say. Absolutely nothing.
Oh, yes, there is. There's a great deal more to say.
She forces Mrs. Elfstead to sit in the easy chair beside the fireplace and seats herself on one of the footstools.
Now, tell me about your life at home.
I'd really rather not.
Not even to me, my dear. Why, we went to high school together.
Yes, but you were in the class ahead of me. I was always really so afraid of you.
Afraid of me?
Yes, when we met on the stairs, you always used to pull my hair.
Did I, really?
Yeah, and once you said you'd burn the hair off my head.
Oh, that was just a schoolgirl's taunt.
I really was so silly in those days, and since then we've just drifted so far apart.
Well then, we must try to drift together again, Tammy.
It's Thea, actually.
Right. So, tell me, I can't quite remember. When you first met your husband, you were a housekeeper?
No, I was never a housekeeper. I was a live-in nurse. But his wife, his late wife, she was an invalid and rarely left her room. So I had to look after the housekeeping as well.
And then eventually you became mistress of the house.
Yes, I did.
How long ago was that?
5 years ago.
And Eilert was in your neighborhood for about 3 years, wasn't he?
Eilert? Yes, he was.
You saw a good deal of him, I suppose?
Yes, he came to the house every day. He taught the children.
And your husband? I suppose he is often away from home?
Yes, he's a businessman, you know.
Well, don't you think he's too old for you? Isn't he 20 years older than you?
Yes, you're right. We have nothing in common. We live alone, even though we live together.
But isn't he fond of you all the same? In his own strange way?
I don't know. I think he finds me useful, and I think the only person he really cares about is himself. He might care a little for the children, but they came from him after all.
And for Eilert Lovborg?
For Eilert Lovborg?
Well, my dear, he sent you all this way to find him. You said so yourself.
My husband did not know I was coming.
Your husband didn't know?
No, he was gone, and I couldn't stand it any longer, Hedda. I couldn't stand being alone, so I packed some things as quietly as possible, and then I left the house.
Without a word?
Yes, and flew into town.
Good for you.
What else could I possibly do?
But what do you think your husband will do if he finds out?
When I go back?
Of course.
I shall never go back to him again.
But what will people say?
They can say what they like. I don't care. I did what I had to do. I only care that I live here, near Eilert.
How did this friendship between you and Eilert come about?
It grew gradually. I gained a sort of influence over him.
Influence? Over him?
Yes, he gave up all his old habits, not because I asked him to, but he saw how repulsive they were to me, and so he just dropped them.
Then you have reformed him.
That's what he says, and he's taught me how to think.
Oh, he did he?
Oh, yes, and I never write anything anymore without his help.
You two were comrades.
Comrades, yes. Oh, Hedda, that is the very word he used. Oh, I ought to feel perfectly happy, and yet I don't know how long it's going to last.
Are you not sure of him, then?
Another woman's shadow stands between me and Eilert.
Who can that be?
I don't know. Someone from his past. Someone he's never been able to forget.
What has he told you about her?
Well, he only mentioned her once.
What did he say?
He said she threatened to shoot him when he walked away from her.
Oh, nonsense. No one does that sort of thing.
No, I guess not. It must have been that sleazy red-headed burlesque dancer. I remember they used to say she always carried a gun.
Then it must have been her.
Hedda, I hear she's in town again. I don't know what to do.
Shh! Here comes George. All that was said must remain between us.
Oh, yes.
The message has been sent.
Judge Brack wishes to know if Miss Tesman will receive him.
Yes, ask Judge Brack to come in.
Yes, ma'am.
She opens the door for Judge Brack and goes out herself. Brack is an older man, thick-set but well-built and elastic in his movements. An aristocratic profile. He wears a well-cut suit, a little too youthful for his age.
Is it too early for a visit?
You are welcome here at any time.
Thank you so much.
Mutual salutations.
I will take you up on your generous hospitality. Well, is your wife satisfied?
Yes, she likes the house very much. Of course she talks about a little retouching here and rearranging there. She's never really satisfied. Fortunately, it won't be long before I get my full-time teaching position.
Such things take a long time.
Have you heard anything definite?
No, but your old friend Eilert Lovborg is back in town.
I know that already. But how in the world will he be able to make a living?
George is always worrying about how other people are to make a living.
I just sent him a message. I asked him to come see us tonight.
But you promised me last night that you'd come to my party.
Did you forget, George?
Yes, I had forgotten.
Oh, it doesn't matter. Lovborg won't come here anyway.
Now, what makes you think that?
My dear George, I really owe it to you to be honest. It's not going to be as easy as I once thought to get you that professorial position you've been hankering after.
What? What do you mean?
Well, you might have to wait a little bit longer, I'm afraid. There is another finalist for the position at the university.
Another finalist? Besides me?
Aha!
I know it's probably indiscreet to ask, but who is the other candidate, if I may ask?
Who else? Eilert Lovborg.
No, that's impossible.
That is what it may come to all the same.
That's incredibly unfair to me. To us. I'm a married man. Hedda and I married on these prospects, and we borrowed money from Aunt Julia, too. We're in debt. We've got this new house, and now no money to pay for it. They promised me that appointment, and I'm entitled to it.
It is very competitive, George. Literature departments are closing all over the country. It's not easy to find a position as a professor of English.
George, whoever thought that you'd be interested in sports?
Why are you laughing at me?
Why shouldn't I laugh? It's funny. I want to see who wins the competition.
If I may give you some unsolicited advice, Mrs. Tesman, you really should be more sparing with your money. Try to economize. Things are difficult in this economy.
It makes no difference to me.
But then I have nothing more to say.
Goodbye, Brack.
Hedda, we've both been reckless.
How so?
It was reckless of us to buy this house based on the expectation that I'd get hired.
Reckless of you, you mean?
Well, in any event, we have our delightful home, the house we always dreamed of.
The house we always dreamed of.
Yes, Hedda, you're quite right, and I was looking forward to it, too. Seeing you as hostess, surrounded by distinguished guests, scholars from all over the world, professors from the university. You would entertain them all. We'll just have to do without it, Hedda. For the time being, we'll just invite Aunt Julia to have dinner with us every evening.
Where is my butler?
Oh, no. Unfortunately, we can't afford a butler. Bertie will be our only servant. A butler? No, that would be out of the question.
And the horses you promised? And the stable? I suppose I shouldn't think of those anymore either.
No, that won't work.
Hedda storms about the room furious. Her eyes fall on something.
Well, at least I have one thing that'll kill time.
Good. I mean, what's that?
My guns, George. My beautiful guns.
She opens a wooden box on the table. Inside are 2 ornate pistols.
The guns my father gave to me. The guns of General Gabler.
Most of the bouquets have been taken away. Hedda, wearing a gorgeous dress, stands alone by the open glass door, loading a revolver. The second gun can be seen in an open pistol case next to her. While Hedda, done up for the day, looks more attractive than she did earlier, the room itself seems less attractive. The very walls show signs of decay. The plants in the garden are wilting and shrivelling up, preparing to drop their leaves for the winter. On the veranda, Hedda looks out past the ends of the withering garden.
So here you are again, Brack. Now I'll shoot you.
Don't shoot! What are you doing? Are you out of your mind?
This is what you get for watching me undress, Judge Brack.
Stop it. Stop it now. Right now. Have you lost your mind?
Oh, I'm only firing it into the air.
Judge Brack steps onto the veranda. He's dressed for his party in a crisp seersucker suit.
Give it to me, you pert little minx.
He gently takes the pistol out of her hand.
I know this pistol very well.
He sees the gun case next to her, goes to the case, lays the pistol in it, and shuts it.
No more playing, Hedda, you saucy little minx.
What else is there for me to do? All of this timeless time to do nothing. Now I know what the afterlife is like.
Is George home?
No. He went to sweet Aunt Julia right after lunch. She's probably cradling him in her arms right now.
How stupid of me to not have thought of that.
Why?
Because if I had thought of it, I would have come to you much earlier. We could have had more time together to talk.
George should be back soon.
Hedda seats herself on a wrought iron bench. Judge Brack sits down too. A short silence. They look at each other.
Well?
Well?
I spoke first.
Come, let us have a nice little talk, Mrs. Hedda. What is it like for you, being married and all?
What I imagine eternity to be like.
Morning, noon, and night, yes. At all possible times and seasons.
If you see the same person every day of your life, what is there to talk about? This must be what life is like after death. Infinite sameness.
Just so. But I should think spending all of eternity with the man you love would be bliss.
Love? Don't use that sickening word. Marriage is a lie. It has absolutely nothing to do with love. Passion, if it lives at all, is short-lived.
Hedda, you can't possibly mean what you're saying.
Marriage is a hoax and a lie.
Hedda, it is unchristian to say such a thing.
Is it? Well, I say that it is inhuman to be married. Marriage. Marriage is the hoax of all hoaxes, the lie of all lies, and should be avoided by anyone who values solitude, privacy, and freedom.
You are just being provocative, Hedda. You don't believe a word of what you're saying.
Don't I?
I cannot believe that you would defame the sacred institution of marriage. There is nothing more beautiful than marriage.
Marriage is a beautiful lie. Marriage is inhuman. A beautiful lie that robs life of its lifeness.
You really should get some sleep, Hedda.
My dear Judge Brack, wouldn't you say that George Tesman is the very model of propriety?
His propriety is beyond all question.
Don't you find him absurd?
Absurd? No, I wouldn't say that exactly.
He doesn't care about literature, and he doesn't know anything about science. And yet he talks so glibly about these things. He tells everyone that he's a professor, but he's not. He's a nobody.
The job market is miserable, Hedda. And I thought that you, like everybody else, expected him to attain the highest distinction.
So I did. And since he was so bent on providing for me, how could I have rejected his offer? It was more than my other admirers were prepared to do for me, my dear Judge. I am getting old. He was the only one who wanted to marry me. And so here I am.
I can't get over the fact that you are married and have no respect for the institution of marriage. You know quite well that I have always entertained respect for marriage as an institution, Mrs. Tesman.
And you would like to be the master of the house, I presume.
All I need is a nice, cozy, warm, intimate space. I will enter that space whenever I feel like it.
As the master of the house, you mean?
As a master of the house. Such a triangular friendship would be a great convenience for all the parties concerned, let me tell you.
Yes, I have many times longed for a friend.
Fortunately, your honeymoon is over now.
No, not for a long, long time. The train has only just left the station.
Well, you can always jump off the train.
I can never jump off.
But suppose a third person were to jump in and make your household a household of 3.
A friendly friend who could talk about anything. Yes, that would be a relief indeed.
The triangulation is completed.
And on goes the train.
As Judge Brack and Hedda enter from the decomposing garden, George enters from the hall. He has a number of unbound books under his arm and in his pockets.
All of these books. Oh, are you there, my dear Judge?
What books have you got there?
Here's a study of Greek tragedy seen from the perspective of evolutionary biology. This one's on biogenetics in Virginia Woolf. And here's another book that relates neurophysiology to the plays of Shakespeare. Edgy stuff, all very hip, where literature and science meet and shake hands.
Your favorite subject.
Oh, yes, it is your favorite subject, George.
Judge Brack and Hedda exchange a discreet smile.
Do you need still more books on your favorite subject?
Yes, my dear Hedda. One could never have too many of them. I can't wait to tell all my friends what I'm reading.
I'll bet you can't.
And look here. I have Eilert Lovborg's new book, too. Perhaps you'd like to glance through it, Hedda. Though you might not understand it. It's pretty heavy stuff, and you'd be better off reading lighter fare.
No, thank you.
I looked at the thing on the bus on the ride home.
Well, what did you think of it? As a literary scholar.
It's just another standard issue book on the end of America. It's well written, though. Now, I'll take all these into my study. I can't wait to tell everyone about the books I'm reading. You don't mind waiting, do you, Judge?
Oh, there's no hurry.
Well, then I will take my time. Oh, Hedda, Aunt Julia's not coming this evening.
Not coming? Is it because of what I said about her coat?
Her coat? Of course not, Hedda. How could you think such a thing? She's fallen ill. The turkey meatloaf cakes made her sick, poor dear.
You're right. How silly of me. What a shame. I will do my best to endure her absence, and may she get well soon. Always Aunt Julia. He never stops talking about that sea ogress.
What?
Nothing.
What coat were you talking about?
Oh, there was a little episode with Aunt Julia this morning. She had laid down her coat on the chair there, and I pretended to think it was the maid's.
Hedda, how could you do such a thing? She's an old lady.
These impulses come over me all of a sudden, and I cannot resist them. I don't know where they come from, these impulses to hurt, to wound, to mutilate, to destroy.
You're unhappy. I can tell.
What reason is there for me to be happy?
Well, among other things, because you got exactly the house you wanted. And a fine house it is.
So you believe George's story, too?
Is there nothing in it, then?
Last summer, I used George to walk me home from parties. He was my escort, my chaperone, if you will. But I made sure everyone knew that we were not seeing each other. Not back then, anyway. Well, one evening we happened to pass by this house. George, the poor sap, was squirming in misery, trying to find words to say to me. I felt pity for him.
You felt pity? You?
Yes, I really did. And so, to relieve him of his misery, I said, without thinking about what I was saying, that I would live with him in this house. From that came our engagement and our marriage and our honeymoon and all the rest of it. And now I'm lying in my own bed, my very own deathbed.
But now that we've made it all so homey for you.
The rooms all seem to reek of lavender and dried rose leaves. But perhaps that's just the stench of Aunt Julia. Oh, my dear Judge, you cannot imagine how horribly bored I am here.
You have never had a thrilling experience in your life, have you, Mrs. Hedda? But suppose a responsibility were to fall on your shoulders. A new responsibility, Mrs. Hedda.
Be quiet. Nothing of that sort will ever happen.
We will speak of this matter some other time.
I want nothing of the sort, Judge Brack. No responsibilities for me.
Well, what about
Be quiet, I tell you. I often think there is only one thing in the world I have any talent for.
And what is that, if I may ask?
Boring myself to death.
Hedda walks in as George comes down the grand staircase, dressed for the party in a linen suit. Berta is answering the door. Eilert Lovborg enters. He is slim and lean, of the same age as George, but looks older and somewhat worn out. He is attractive.
Well, my dear Eilert, so at last we meet again.
Thank you for the message, George.
They shake hands.
Will you two shake hands with me? Mrs. Hedda Tesman.
It is good to see you again, Eilert. I don't know whether you know Judge Brack.
Yes, we have met once before.
Oh, yes, many years ago, wasn't it?
Let me tell you, I have your new book, but I haven't had a chance to read it yet. The reviews are off the charts.
Don't waste your time.
Why do you say that? What do you mean?
I didn't put my soul into that book.
Then why is it getting so many favorable reviews? And your sales rank is epic.
It has gotten good press, from what I hear.
That was what I wanted. So I put nothing of myself into the book but what everyone would agree with. It is yet another book that states the obvious. America can no longer pretend to be the center of the world.
Quite right.
But when this one appears, George Tesman, you will have to read it.
He reaches into his pocket and takes out a packet wrapped in paper.
And what is it?
This is my very soul. My soul and my child, my only child. The creation of this book, I can say this at the risk of sounding pompous, the creation of this book is the only great thing that I have ever done. It's the only great thing I'll ever do. I don't write in order to live. I have lived my life solely in order to write this book. My life only has but one purpose. And this book is that purpose. When I'm dead, I'll be remembered as the author of this book.
Surely there's more in you than one silly book.
No, there isn't. I'll never write another. Were it not for the creation of this book, I'd be nothing at all. Without this book, I'd be anonymous, a statistic.
Well, you've certainly piqued my curiosity. The book that was just published on the end of American hegemony? That is about America's role in the current geopolitical and geoeconomic scene?
Yes, it is about the present, and this one deals with the future. With our collective future.
The future? But we can't know anything about the future. The future is unpredictable.
There's a thing or two to be said about it, just the same.
How odd. I never would have thought of writing anything like that.
That is quite true. You never would have thought of writing anything like that.
Well, I brought it, thinking I might recite a few passages this evening.
You know, that's a great idea and all, but I just don't think we'll have the time this evening. I was thinking of giving a lecture tonight on how biochemistry can be used to understand Hemingway and his novels. I know our guests are all excited to hear my ideas, and I promised them, so you see, it would be quite impossible.
Well, then, some other time. There's no hurry.
Mr. Lovborg, there is a little gathering in my house this evening, mainly in honor of George, you know.
Oh, then I won't keep you.
No, but listen, will you not do me the favor of joining us?
No, I can't. Thank you very much.
Oh, nonsense. Please come. Only sensitive-minded people will be there. You'll be among friends, literate friends. And you would bring your manuscript with you and recite it.
Yes, think of that, Eilert. Why the hell not?
But, George, I'm sure Eilert would be much more inclined to remain here and have supper with me.
With you, Hedda?
And with Thea.
With Thea? I saw her for a moment this morning.
Did you? Well, she's coming this evening. So you see, you are almost obliged to stay, Eilert, or she'll be forced to go home alone. And everyone knows what kind of people stalk the bayous of Louisiana.
That's true. Many thanks, Hedda. In that case, I will stay. If you're sure it wouldn't be any trouble.
No trouble at all. Let me talk to the maid.
I read that you're going to give a reading and a signing next month. I'm sure the hiring committee will notice. As you know, we are both going for the same position at the university.
I'm withdrawing my application, George.
You're withdrawing your application? Why?
I have nothing but contempt for academia. No real thinking or writing takes place at a university. I'm only interested in moral victories, not career moves.
Ha ha! Aunt Julia was right after all. Yes, I knew it. Hedda, Eilert isn't going to stand in our way.
Our way? Leave me out of it.
Don't you see, Hedda? The storm has passed.
Will you have a drink, gentlemen?
Wonderful idea, Hedda. Time to celebrate. Weight has been lifted.
Nothing for you, Mr. Eilert.
No, thank you. Nothing for me.
It's not poison, you know.
Oh, not to you, it isn't.
I will keep Eilert company. Come with me to the veranda.
Yes, Hedda. Keep Eilert company. He has been so good to me. I mean, to us.
Would you like to look at our honeymoon pictures, Eilert?
Hedda Gabler.
Stop.
Hedda Gabler.
That was my name in the old days, when we knew each other.
And I must never say Hedda Gabler again.
No.
Hedda Gabler married. And married to George Tesman. Of all people.
So the world goes.
Hedda, how could you throw your life away like that?
Don't say that. And here are George and I at the Tulip Festival in Holland.
Let me see. Oh, yes, there's me standing next to that beautiful statue.
That's me.
Hedda, do you want some champagne?
Yes, please. And perhaps a few cookies?
Cigarette?
No.
Okay.
Hedda Gabler, how could you go and do this to yourself? How could you do this to me? Answer me.
If you keep on calling me Hedda Gabler, I won't talk to you.
Not even when we're alone.
You may think it, but you may not say it.
Because you love George? George Tesman, of all men.
Love him? What an idea.
You don't love him, then?
Keep quiet.
Answer me one thing.
No, I won't be your lover.
Here you are, my dear.
Why do you bring it yourself? Isn't that what Berta is for?
Because I think it's just such fun to wait on you, Hedda.
Why did you pour out 2 glasses? Eilert said he didn't want any champagne.
No, but Thea will be here soon, won't she?
Yes, right. Thea. Sorry, I'm just so engrossed in these pictures. Do you remember the Atomium in Brussels?
How could I forget? It's just too bad that Eilert couldn't be there with us. Excuse me for just a few minutes. Brack is getting lonely.
You never loved me, did you?
I wonder. To me, it seems as though we were 2 very close friends. Or brother and sister. We could tell each other anything.
If I'm your brother, it's because you made me your brother.
There was something really beautiful, something fascinating, something daring, something dark, something difficult, something magical in our secret intimacy.
We were intimately connected. I confessed to you so many things I was afraid to tell any other living soul, and you never condemned me for my feelings.
Would you say I have a supernatural power over you?
How else can I explain it? And all those indiscreet questions, those probing questions you used to ask me. You humiliated me with your insistent questions, but I told you everything. Things I daren't tell anyone else, even today.
I do have a supernatural power. Mouths open in my presence.
How could you interrogate me like that? For the life of me, I can't understand it. And why did I tell you all my secrets? I must have been under your spell. Hedda, beneath it all, didn't you love me?
No, not really. Like I said, you were more of a brother to me.
Why did you want to know so much about me then? Why did you ask me so many questions, so many sick questions?
Does it surprise you that a young girl would want to explore a world that is forbidden to her?
That was it. You were curious to know what it was like to be me. To be a confused teenage boy.
Nothing more than that. I wanted to know what went on in your depraved little mind.
Fine. So, you didn't love me. You were just curious about my inner life. But why couldn't we have kept it up? Why couldn't we have continued our intimate companionship?
That was your fault, not mine, you bastard.
You broke up with me. I didn't break up with you.
Eilert, I broke off the friendship when it threatened to develop into something more than just a friendship.
Then why didn't you carry out your threat? Why didn't you just shoot me in the heart? 'Cause you could have saved me years of agony, years of misery, years of self-hatred.
Because I don't like scenes.
Hedda Tesman, you are a coward.
You are lucky that I'm a coward.
I know what Thea told you about me.
Have you told her about us?
Not a word. She's too stupid to understand what you and I had.
Stupid?
She's stupid when it comes to spiritual matters.
And I am a coward. I must confess something to you.
Well,
I didn't shoot you back then because
Yes?
my not shooting you had nothing to do with cowardice.
You didn't shoot me because you have a passion for life.
Now you're the one who's being stupid. Thea, is that you?
Mrs. Thea Elvsted enters from the hall dressed in an exquisite evening dress.
Shall I go in and talk to your husband?
No, let them babble.
Thea takes a chair and is about to seat herself at his side when Hedda interrupts.
No, let me sit between you. It's friendlier this way, don't you think?
Why not?
Isn't Hedda beautiful?
Only to look at.
Oh, Hedda and I are the closest friends. We can say anything to each other, absolutely anything.
It takes bravery to be open before another human being.
Oh, we both have the courage to be open with each other, to expose our innermost lives to each other.
The courage to be intimate with another human being. If one only had that, then perhaps life would be livable after all. My dearest Thea, you really must have a glass of nice cold champagne.
No thanks, I never drink.
Well, then you, Eilert, have a drink.
Alcohol's poison to the soul.
And poison to the body. It makes one prematurely old.
And what if I command you to drink champagne?
It would be in vain.
Poor me. Then I have no power over you.
Not in that way. No.
But seriously, I think you ought to have a drink. Champagne relaxes the mind. Those who refuse to drink alcohol are weak.
Hedda.
How so?
People who refuse to drink aren't secure, aren't confident in themselves.
Oh, please, Hedda.
Well, people may say what they like. We're not drinkers.
Yes, let them say whatever they want.
Look, don't get me wrong. I don't think you're cowards for not drinking, but other people will, and do. I saw it in Brack's face a moment ago.
What did you see?
His simper of contempt when you didn't dare join the men. He looked at you like you were a child, or an old virgin, or a queer.
Didn't dare? Of course, I prefer to stay here and talk to you.
Well, what could be more natural, Hedda?
Then you aren't going to join them and talk about geopolitics and the recession and the end of American dominance?
I would rather stay here with you. And with Thea.
Yes, Hedda, we'd rather be here with you.
Lovborg takes a glass of champagne, raises it to his lips.
To your health, Thea.
He empties his glass and pours another.
Hedda, how could you do this?
I do it. Are you crazy?
Oh, here's to your health too, Mrs. Tesman.
He empties the glass and is about to refill it.
Come, no more for the present. Remember, you're going to the party.
No.
Lovborg seizes a glass and is on the point of refilling it. Hedda stops him.
No more just now. Remember, you have to read your manuscript to George.
Well, Mrs. Tesman, our time has come.
I suppose it has.
Mine too, Judge Brack. You were good enough to invite me.
Are you coming after all?
Yes, many thanks.
I'm delighted.
I should like to show you one or two things before I send it to my publisher.
That would be delightful. But Hedda, dear, how will Thea get home? She didn't drive.
Oh, that can be managed somehow.
Not to worry. I'll come back around 10 to pick you up there.
That would be fine.
Well then, Mr. Lovborg, I shall remain here until you come.
About 10 o'clock, then.
All right, then. But you must not expect me home so early, Hedda.
Oh, you may stay out as long as you please, bad boy.
And now, off to our adventures, gentlemen.
Evening in the drawing room. Thea wanders restlessly.
Hedda, oh, Hedda, what will come of all this?
At 10 o'clock he will be here. I can see him already, with vine leaves tangled in his hair like a nest of snakes, his skin glowing with an unnatural blue.
Hedda stares at a painting on the wall. In it, there are gentlemen dressed in fine clothes, gathered around a table piled high with wine and foods. One of the men in the painting resembles Eilert Lovborg, standing on a chair and reading to the group. The images in the painting seem to come to life. It is Eilert Lovborg. He comes forth from the painting, naked, with vines entangled, Medusa-like in his hair, his skin painted a radiant blue. Hedda watches, hypnotized.
You will see. He will have mastered himself. He will take hold of his own death. Then he will be a free man forever.
Oh, God, if only he would come as you see him now.
He will come as I see him.
In the painting, there are pages of Eilert's manuscript lying about the floor and on the table. Hedda is visibly concerned about these pages.
You may doubt him, but I believe in him.
You have some hidden motive in this, Hedda.
I want, for once in my life, to shape a human life, to sculpt a human being with my own hands, from beginning to end.
But your husband...
Do you really think he's worth the trouble? He is a man without substance. He is no Eilert Lovborg.
In her anger, Hedda stares into another painting. She can see Eilert drunk, being carried away. The pages are on the floor. She sees George pick them up. She frowns, spins around to Thea.
I am going to burn off all of your hair.
Let go of me. Let go of me. I'm afraid of you, Hedda. No. I would rather go home alone at once.
Nonsense. First, you shall have a cup of tea, you stupid little cow.
Oh.
And then, at 10 o'clock, Eilert Lovborg will be here, with vine leaves entangled in his hair, his skin glowing an unnatural blue, his arms flung back, a tremendous phallus rising from between his legs.
She forcefully drags Thea across the floor and into the dining room. Morning in the drawing room. Daylight streams into the room. George stands behind Hedda. She holds Eilert's manuscript, reading it. When the light hits her, Hedda's face glows. She looks even more dazzling than before. Yet the room around her seems to be withering. The walls appear even more decayed than they had previously. Accelerated decomposition.
Why did you not give this back to him?
I didn't dare in the state he was in.
Did you tell any of the others that you had found it?
Far from it. For Isla's sake, I certainly wouldn't do that.
Silence! You'll wake up Thea. So no one knows that Eilert's manuscript is in your possession?
No. And no one must know it. I must make a confession to you, Hedda. When he had finished reading, a feeling of dread came over me.
Go on.
I envy Eilert for having written such a book. This may be the first truly groundbreaking work of political philosophy in the 21st century. I mean, it's the equal of Marx's Capital, of Hobbes's Leviathan, of Plato's Republic even. I've never heard of anything this brilliant by a living author, and I know him. I never knew he was capable of something this profound. I am humbled by his genius. This is a sacred book.
Interesting.
He will weep tears of blood when he wakes up and finds the manuscript gone. He told me that this is the only copy of his masterpiece. He wrote it entirely by hand. No one writes by hand anymore. Can you imagine that?
Could he write it over again from memory?
No, Hedda, there is no way that it's reproducible. It is 500 pages long. 500 beautifully written pages of heartbreaking, staggering genius. How could he memorize 500 pages? He'd have to have the memory of God to reproduce the manuscript.
Yes, I suppose it depends on that. Oh, and here's a letter for you. It came a while ago.
It's from Aunt Julia. Oh, Hedda. It says that her sister, poor Aunt Rena, is dying.
Well, we were prepared for that.
And that if I want to see her before she dies, I must hurry. I'll run to them at once.
Will you run?
Oh, my dearest Hedda, if you could only make up your mind to come with me.
No, don't ask me. I will not look upon sickness and death. I loathe ugliness.
Farewell, then. My coat. Oh, in the hall. I do hope I'm not too late. Oh, the manuscript!
I will keep it until you come back.
Hedda holds a manuscript, staring at it, then places it in the bookcase. She looks up at the painting on the wall. Judge Brack pops in from the garden.
Are you coming in that way?
Yes, it's a shortcut for me.
You seem to have had a vivacious night.
What has Tesman been telling you about the night's adventures?
Oh, some tiresome story. Only that they went and had coffee someplace or other.
Eilert Lovborg was not with them, I imagine.
No, he was taken home.
Do you know where he finished the night, Mrs. Hedda?
No. Tell me.
Oh, well, he ended up at Mademoiselle Diana's.
Mademoiselle Diana's? The burlesque dancer?
It was Mademoiselle Diana who was performing. To a select circle of her admirers and lady friends.
Is she a red-haired woman?
Yes, Eilert Lovborg is one of her most enthusiastic admirers.
And what happened?
Lovborg accused her and her friends of having robbed him. He declared that his wallet had disappeared, and other things as well. He seems to have made quite a disturbance. From what I understand, he assaulted a police officer.
How do you know all of this?
From the police.
So that is what happened. Then he had no vine leaves in his hair. Tell me, Judge, why are you so interested in spying on Eilert Lovborg?
I thought that as a friend of the family, it was my duty to supply you and Tesman with a full account of his nocturnal exploits.
Why?
Every respectable house ought to be closed against Eilert Lovborg.
And mine ought to be too?
Yes. I confess it would be quite painful to me if this character were to make of your house a nest. How superfluous, how intrusive he is, this vermin.
You don't want him to take your place.
Precisely. I have no desire to be homeless.
So, you want our house to be a household of 3. That is your aim, not a household of 4.
I will fight my way inside, with every weapon at my command.
I see that you are a dangerous person.
Do you think so?
I am beginning to think so, and I am glad that you have no hold on me.
Well, Mrs. Hedda, you are right there. If I did have you in my power, there's no telling what I would do with you. Just think of the awful, dirty, sinister things that I would do to you, Mrs. Hedda. If I had you in my power, if you belonged to me, you would have no liberty at all. You would be my doll, and dolls are to be played with.
That sounds like a threat.
Oh, not at all. You're free to choose your friends. I have no control over you.
But you would like to have control over me?
Oh, yes, of course. I would like to have control over you. Who would blame me for wanting to make you my doll? Goodbye, Mrs. Hedda Tesman. For now.
Are you going through the garden?
Yes, it's a shortcut for me.
Like an intruder.
Quite so. I have no objection to back ways.
You should be careful, Judge Brack. You might get shot one of these days, slinking around in other people's backyards, like an intruder.
The pet rooster never gets shot.
I don't waste my bullets on the pet rooster. I take aim at the fox.
She closes the door behind him and stares outside. Eilert Lovborg enters, looking confused and somewhat irritated.
Well, Mr. Lovborg, this is a rather late hour to call for Thea.
You mean rather an early hour to call on you. Excuse me.
How do you know that she is still here?
They told me at a lodging she'd been out all night.
Thea runs down the staircase.
Oh, Lovborg, at last.
Yes, at last, and too late.
What is too late?
Everything is too late now. It is all over with me.
Oh, no, don't say that.
Perhaps you would prefer to talk to her alone?
No, stay. You too. Please, stay. It's not last night's adventures that I want to talk about.
What is it then?
I want to say that we can't see each other ever again.
What?
I knew it.
You can't save me, Thea.
How can you say that?
I shall never work again.
Then what am I to do with my life?
You must try to live your life as though you never knew me.
But you know I can't.
Try, Thea. You must go home again.
Never in this world. I will not let you drive me away. I will be with you when the book is published.
Thea, our book will never be published.
What have you done with the manuscript? Where is it?
I have torn the manuscript into 1,000 pieces.
But that's not...
Not true, you think?
Oh, well, of course, since you say so.
It is true, all the same.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
Well, I've torn my own life to pieces. So why should I not tear up my life's work as well?
You murdered our child.
Yes, you're right. It is a sort of infanticide.
How could you? It was my child, too, and you killed our baby.
Ah, the child.
It's all over. I'll go now, Hedda.
What are you going to do?
Don't know. I see nothing but darkness before me.
Tell me the truth.
First, you give me your word that Thea shall never know.
I give you my word.
Good. And let me tell you that what I just said now is untrue. I have destroyed my child, nevertheless. To kill his child is not the worst thing a father can do.
Not the worst.
I have lost my child.
Your child? It was only a book.
Only a book. That book was the love of my life.
Yes, so you said.
Hedda stomachs that truth painfully.
What are you gonna do now?
Without my book, I'm nothing. That book was my life.
Eilert Lovborg, listen to me. Will you die beautifully?
Will I die beautifully? With vine leaves entangled in my hair, as you used to dream in the old days?
No. I've lost my faith in the vine leaves. But for once, let death be beautiful.
He is on the point of going.
No, wait. I must give you a souvenir to take with you.
She opens the pistol case, then returns to Lovborg with one of the pistols.
Do you recognize it? This is the same gun I pointed at you when we were children.
She points the gun at him.
You should have used it back then.
Take the gun. Kill yourself.
Kill myself.
And beautifully, Eilert Lovborg. You are going to die. So die beautifully. Promise me that.
Farewell, Hedda Gabler.
She waits to hear him leave, then goes to the locked drawer and removes the manuscript. She opens the cover and removes several sheets, sitting herself down to read. Her face grows with a despair we've never seen.
I'm killing your baby, Eilert. I'm tearing your baby to pieces. I'm ripping apart the flesh of your baby. Can you hear your baby screaming, Eilert? Can you hear your baby screaming in agony? I am tearing off the arms of your baby. I'm tearing off the legs of your baby. Your baby is bleeding, Eilert. Your baby is bleeding, and I am tearing apart your baby. I am killing your baby. I am murdering your baby.
In a whirl of agony and rage, she gathers the torn pages and slithers across the floor to the fireplace. She opens the screen and sets some manuscripts inside, torn shreds and all, and watches it burn.
I am incinerating your baby, Eilert. Your baby is burning alive. I am killing your baby. Listen to your baby screaming in pain. I am murdering your baby. Smell the burning baby flesh. The bubbling, burning baby flesh of your dying baby. Burning your baby. Your baby. I am burning your baby. Your dead, burning baby.
As she stares into the flames, it is as if her very eyes light up into the clearest, whitest light, and the curtains behind her, hanging by the veranda door, melt away. That evening, the drawing room itself has grown sick, and the walls are decayed, stained and rotten, as if the very walls were neglected, and never as we remember them looking before. There is a greenish, rotten hue to the paint, which appears to be peeling off the walls, and a damp, thick fog in the air. Just then, the doors part with an enormous gush of air. Hedda, dressed in a black gown, emerges as if she's floating on air. She's glowing, more resplendent than we've ever seen her, beaming with light and life. We follow her in slow motion until she pivots and drapes herself backwards onto the sofa, her gown draping her body and the seat like ink. Behind her, George enters.
I'm worried about Eilert.
Why? Did something happen to him?
I stopped by his place this afternoon to tell him that his manuscript was safe, and that I saw Thea, and she told me that he was here early this morning. Is that true?
Yes. He came right after you had left.
And he said that he had torn his own manuscript to pieces?
So he said.
Dear God, the poor sap must have lost his mind. And you, Hedda, you thought it was in his best interest not to give the manuscript back to him?
No, he didn't get it.
But of course you told him that it was safe.
No. Did you tell Thea?
I said nothing to her about the book. Give me the book, Hedda. I will take this to him right now and put an end to his anguish.
I don't have it.
What the hell do you mean you don't have it?
I burned the book. Every page of it.
Burned? You burned Eilert's book? Why? Are you crazy?
Shut up, George. You're being stupid again.
My God, no. It's impossible. You didn't really burn his book.
Of course I did.
Do you have any idea what you've done, Hedda? It is against the law to destroy someone else's property. Go and ask Brack. He'll tell you all about it.
I would advise you not to speak of it, neither to Judge Brack nor anyone else.
How could you do something so malicious, so evil? What possessed you? Answer me!
I did it for you, George.
For me?
You said that you envied his talent. You said that you envied his work.
Yes, but I never asked you to burn his book.
It doesn't matter. You should never languish in the shadow of another man.
Oh, Hedda, I never knew you loved me with such force, with such passion.
Then, now is the time to give you the news.
Hedda's hand caresses her abdomen, her womb. George excitedly embraces her.
Oh, Hedda, do you really mean it?
Don't shout. The maid might hear you.
The maid? How silly you are, Hedda. It's only Bertie. Why, I'll tell Bertie myself. This is the best day of our lives.
Oh, it is killing me. It is killing me, all this.
What is, Hedda?
All of this stupidity, George.
Stupidity? I'm overjoyed by the news of my wife's pregnancy. I will certainly tell Aunt Julia right away. Oh, Aunt Julia will be so happy.
when she hears that I have burned another man's baby for your sake, that I have a dead baby's blood on my hands.
Dead baby? Oh, you mean the manuscript? No, of course, nobody needs to know about that. We'll just keep it our secret between us. It's time to just focus on our life together. Just forget about Eilert's book. He'll write another one, maybe.
Oh, dear Hedda, forgive my coming uninvited.
What's the matter with you, Thea?
Something about Eilert again?
Yes, he is going to die.
Do you think so?
Why? What makes you think that?
I went looking for him at the bar down the street. His friends were there, and they said that...
What did they say?
They said something about Eilert in the hospital.
The hospital?
No, that's not possible.
Oh, I was in such mortal terror. I went to where he's staying. They said he hadn't been home since yesterday afternoon. I'm sure that something terrible must have happened to him.
Hedda, dear, maybe I could go up and find him.
No, don't you get mixed up in this. You're in over your head.
Brack?
It is imperative I speak to you.
Is it bad news?
Well, that depends on how you look at it.
What happened?
Something terrible?
That again depends on how you look at it.
Does this have something to do with Eilert?
Eilert Lovborg has been taken to the hospital. He is dying.
Oh my God, no!
He committed the one truly human act. He performed the act of freedom.
I never had the chance to say I'm sorry, Hedda. I must go to him. I must see him.
It is useless. No one is allowed to see him.
Oh, at least tell me what happened to him.
Please don't tell me that he tried to kill himself, Brack.
Of course he tried to kill himself. Self-annihilation is the only act of freedom.
Unfortunately, you are right, Mrs. Hedda. He tried to kill himself.
No, Eilert.
He tried to kill himself? That doesn't make any sense. Why would he?
Did he shoot himself in the heart?
You are right again, Hedda.
When did it happen, Mr. Brack?
At 3:30 this afternoon.
But good Lord, where did he do it?
In the shower. The paramedics found his body naked in the shower. But he was still breathing. He had vine leaves in his hair.
No, no, that can't be true. This can't be happening.
There, I'm sorry. But it did happen. He shot himself through the heart.
No one should die like that. And will he die? Will he live?
He shot himself through the heart.
Yes. And he was wearing vine leaves in his hair.
Hedda spins around, smiling, pressing her fingertips against her lips and closing her eyes.
Through the heart.
Brack, is the wound fatal?
It is a lethal wound. The end has probably come by now.
The end of his life?
At last, someone has performed the great act.
Hedda, what the hell are you saying?
I say there is greatness and beauty in self-annihilation, in the voluntary assumption of one's own mortality.
Hedda!
Eilert Lovborg had the great courage to perform the one great human act. The one who commits suicide becomes divine. Eilert Lovborg has become God.
It was sad and stupid and insane, but you cannot tell me it was great or divine.
He was sick!
He was not a sick man. He was a great man when he took his own life. He became God by taking his own life.
No, he was delirious, just as when he tore up his own book.
He tore up his own book?
Yes.
Strange.
To think of Eilert taking leave of the world in this way, and not even leaving behind him the book that would have made him deathless.
If only it could be put back together.
Yes, if only it could. What I wouldn't give to repair what he tore to pieces.
Perhaps you can, George.
What do you mean?
I've kept all the notes he used.
You kept his notes?
Yes, I have them here.
Let me see them.
But they're all mixed up.
Perhaps I could stitch them together.
We must try.
We will do it. We must do it. I will dedicate my life to this task. I will synthesize his notes into a coherent form. I will resurrect his masterpiece.
You, George. Your life?
Yes, my entire life. We owe it to this great mind. We owe it to our friend. My own research must wait in the meantime. Hedda, you understand, don't you? We owe this to Eilert's memory.
I don't think it's what he would have wanted. Throw the notes in the fire.
Hedda, enough of your raving. Please stop. There, we will give our whole minds to it. There is no use brooding over what can't be undone. We will preserve Eilert's memory by reconstructing his work.
Thank you, George. Thank you so much.
Come here, Thea. I will not rest until I have restored Eilert's book as it was written. I will be known as the man who rescued Eilert Lovborg's manuscript. Excuse me, Judge. Come with me, my dear Thea.
Hedda stands near the veranda doors. Above her, in the large mirror, we see George and Thea sitting down at the dining room table. They are soon deep in an eager examination of the papers. Hedda opens the door to the veranda and steps outside.
Oh, what a feeling of freedom it gives me to know that an act of courage is still possible in this world. An act of spontaneous beauty. By choosing our own deaths, we outsoar the earth. Aviatrices of the night.
My dear Mrs. Hedda, Eilert Lovborg was more to you than you perhaps are willing to admit to yourself. Am I wrong?
I don't answer such questions. I only know that Eilert Lovborg had the courage to live his life as he saw it. And then, the last great act, with its beauty, his act of self-annihilation, was the fulfillment of his life.
I am sorry, Hedda, but I'm afraid that you're going to have your beautiful illusions shattered.
Illusions? What do you mean?
Eilert Lovborg's suicide did not happen exactly as I said it did. It wasn't quite so idealized, quite so romanticized, quite so metaphysical, quite so cinematic.
Tell me precisely what happened.
To begin with, Eilert Lovborg is dead and gone.
What more have you hidden from me?
He didn't kill himself in the shower.
What difference does that make?
Eilert Lovborg was found shot at the local burlesque theater.
That is impossible.
He was there this afternoon. He went there, he said, to demand the return of something which they had taken from him. He talked wildly about a lost child.
That is impossible.
I thought probably he meant his manuscript, but now I hear he destroyed that himself.
And he was found there.
Yes, there, with a gun in his pocket discharged. The bullet had lodged inside of him.
In the heart?
No, in his colon.
Everything I touch turns to shit.
There is one more thing, Mrs. Tesman.
And what is that?
The gun he carried.
Well, what about it?
He must have stolen it.
That's not true.
No other explanation is possible. He must have stolen it.
Why are you saying this?
Eilert Lovborg was here this morning, wasn't he?
Yes, he was.
Were you alone with him?
For a few minutes. I don't remember.
Did you leave the room when he was here?
I don't remember exactly what I did. I might have. I don't know.
Try to remember, Mrs. Tesman. Did you step out of the room?
Maybe for a minute.
And where was your gun case during that time?
I had it locked up in...
Where, Mrs. Tesman?
There. On my writing desk.
Have you looked to see if both of your guns are there?
No.
It isn't necessary. I already checked. Lovborg shot himself with your gun.
Hedda is frozen in place. She darts from the room, unable to listen to him any longer. In the dining room, George and Thea are at the table. George has papers in both hands, scouring through them.
My sweet Thea, how goes it with Eilert's masterpiece?
Oh, it's just difficult to make sense of it.
We must manage it. I am determined. and arranging other people's papers is just the work for me, and I will be known as the man who saved Eilert Lovborg's masterpiece from the flames.
Hedda circles the dining room table and watches them work. Judge Brack stands in the doorway, watching Hedda like a hawk. Hedda looks at Thaya's notes and the papers. Hedda begins to wilt slightly, circling this space of promise and great desire. She darts back to the drawing room. In a whirl of hurry, she drifts to the fireplace and grabs a wrought iron poker, stirring the fire. Judge Brack follows her.
Do you have the gun?
No, the police have it.
What will the police do with it?
Search till they find its proper owner.
Do you think they will succeed?
No, not as long as I keep silent.
And if you do not say anything, what then?
Then there is always the possibility that the gun was stolen.
I'd rather die than do what you want me to do.
Now, Hedda. You and I will become very close. As close can be.
I would rather die than have you touch me.
That's the sort of thing people say all the time, but no one ever does it. The will to live is too strong.
The gun. Supposing the owner is discovered, what then?
Well, Hedda, then comes the scandal.
The scandal?
Yes, the scandal of which you are rightfully terrified. You will, of course, be brought before the court, both you and the burlesque dancer, Mademoiselle Diana. She will, of course, explain to the court exactly what happened. And I will be the presiding judge.
But I have nothing to do with all of this disgusting business.
But you do, my little minx. You are involved. Why did you give Eilert your gun? And when the news goes national, global even, what will people say about you then?
I didn't think of any of that.
Well, fortunately for you, there is no danger in the news ever spreading as long as I keep my mouth shut.
So, I am your doll, Judge Brack. I am your slave from now on.
My sweetheart, my sweetest darling Hedda, believe me, you will enjoy everything I will do to you. I will give you my love, and you will enjoy being loved by me. I have so much love to give you. You will be smothered in my love.
So. I am your slave. A slave to your desires, no matter how base, no matter how foul.
You'll get used to the inevitable, and you'll come to like my desires. You belong to me, now and forever.
Yes, perhaps.
She moves slowly to the door to the dining room and looks in.
Well, how is your project coming along, George?
Everything is here. It will take months to suture it all together.
How about that? Eilert hasn't died in vain.
She watches Thea look at George.
Is there nothing I can do to help you two? Would you like some lemonade and cookies?
No, that's fine, Hedda. You've done so much already. I trust you'll keep a close watch on her, Brack.
It would be the greatest pleasure.
I'm tired this evening. I think I'll go lie down on the sofa.
Get some rest, Hedda. You'll need it. You and I have a big day tomorrow. You and I are going to get to know each other very, very well. Yes, very well indeed.
Hedda goes into the drawing room by herself. Judge Brack moves over to the table and sits with George and Thea. Hedda looks around the room at the rotten stillness, the decaying walls. She moves slowly to the piano and sits down. She feels the keys for a moment and then plays some wild, loud music. In the mirror above her, we see George and Thea in the dining room.
Hedda, stop all that playing. You'll wake the dead.
I will soon be silent.
It's not good for Hedda to see us at work. I'll tell you what, Thea. Let's meet somewhere where we can have more privacy.
I hear what you're saying, George.
Oh, but your poor wife. She's under such a strain.
Oh, I'm sure Judge Brack will be kind enough to look after Hedda when I'm not around.
Well, nothing would give me greater pleasure than to look after Hedda. Goodness, she needs me to look after her. She and I will get along just fine. Yes, just fine.
Hedda stares at herself in the mirror. She glows with her full beauty, luminous skin radiant, vine leaves entangled in her hair. She becomes the fantasy she wanted. The walls behind her decay and fall apart. All crumbles around her image. Her eyes fall forward and land on the pistol case. She takes it and walks slowly to the veranda doors. Out into the moonlight she floats, the wind gently waving her inky gown, blending into the night. She puts her fingertips to her lips and the pistol to her head.
Don't flatter yourself, Brack. You are a gelded rooster. A neutered rooster. A capon.
Hedda's body drops to the stone floor.
Oh, now she is playing with those pistols again.
She beams more radiantly than before. Next to her face, we see a small lily pond. In the reflection on the water, we see the door to the drawing room. George appears, upside down in the water's reflection.
No! She shot herself!
There is Hedda's face. She dies, smiling.
That's not normal. That's not what normal people do. Oh.
The tender ripples in the lily pond dissolve their reflection. The end. This has been a Dikenga audio production of Henrik Ibsen's Hedda Gabler, narrated by Damien Gerard, with performances by Jennifer Grace as Hedda, L.B. Deyo as George, Daniel Van Thomas as Eilert Lovborg, Kendall Lynch as Thea Elfsted, Steve Balderson as Judge Brack, Nancy Critchfield-Jones as Aunt Julia, and Becky Jo Neal as Berta. Copyright 2020 by Dikenga Films. Production copyright 2020 by Dikenga Audio. All rights reserved.